Good morning and welcome to our live coverage of the launch of the Starlink 9-4 mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. I'm Stephen Young and I'll be providing the commentary for this morning's coverage. The launch time for the Falcon 9 is 2:22 a.m. Pacific. That's 5:22 Eastern Time, or 0922 UTC for our viewers around the world. SpaceX confirmed a short while ago that fueling of the Falcon 9 is underway. That process begins at the T-minus 35-minute mark. We'll take a look at the countdown timeline in a moment. This mission is carrying 21 Starlink satellites. 13 of those feature the direct-to-cellphone capability that SpaceX is working with T-Mobile to develop. If all goes well and this launch places the satellites in orbit, that will bring the total number of direct-to-cell Starlink satellites to 129. So let's take a quick look at the countdown timeline. Some of these events have obviously already taken place. At around the T-minus 38-minute mark, the SpaceX launch director will verify the go for propellant load. We did hear from SpaceX that that was going to go ahead. We don't receive countdown audio from SpaceX, so we don't have confirmation of that, but we'll assume that no news is good news, and the countdown is proceeding as normal. SpaceX also said that the weather is looking good for this morning's launch. However, we do know that Vandenberg is prone to foggy conditions, and the marine layer is likely to be a factor this morning in the visibility. Fortunately, the Falcon 9 is equipped with onboard cameras, so we'll still get views of the rocket's climb away from the Californian coast. So that propellant loading process begins at the T-minus 35-minute mark. It starts with the loading of kerosene on both the first and second stages of the rocket. The loading of liquid oxygen begins with just the first stage. By this point in the countdown, the loading of that kerosene, it's a rocket-grade fuel, should be nearing completion on the second stage. It'll take a lot longer to fill the first stage tank, which is much bigger. Also, some milestones that we've already crossed by this point in the countdown is the loading of helium on the first and the second stages of the rocket. This helium is important because it is used to pressurize those propellant tanks to drive the fuel and oxidizer into the Merlin engines and keep that system running. As I said, the loading of kerosene on the second stage should have wrapped up a short while ago. SpaceX will be starting the process of the chill down of the strung back structure. There are the liquid oxygen lines that run up this strung back to provide fuel to the second stage, and those lines have to be cooled prior to the start of the flow of the superchilled liquid oxygen. That process creates a large cloud of vapor that has become known as the big vent. When that process completes, they can start the loading of the liquid oxygen into the second stage, and that begins at the T minus 16-minute mark. As we enter the final 10 minutes of the countdown, the first major milestone is the start of engine chill. That begins at the T minus 7-minute mark. It's followed by the completion of the loading of kerosene on the first stage. With 4.5 minutes left in the count, the strung back retract starts. That's a slightly different process at Vandenberg than at Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center. The strung back retracts to about 13 degrees from the vehicle and remains there for the remainder of the count and liftoff. The strung backs on the East Coast just move back a couple of degrees before pulling further away from the vehicle at ignition. With 3 minutes left on the clock, the first stage liquid oxygen load should be complete. That's followed by the second stage fill reaching its conclusion. At T minus 1 minute, the Falcon 9's onboard computers will take control of the final seconds of the countdown. We should hear the SpaceX launch director give their go for launch at about 45 seconds from liftoff. As we enter the final seconds of the countdown, the water deluge system at the launch pad will begin to pour thousands of gallons of water onto the structure to dampen the sound from the rocket as it lifts off. That engine ignition sequence starts at T minus 3 seconds and is very distinctive because of the green flash of the T-Teb ignition fluid that is used for that process. If all looks good, and the engine controllers don't detect any problems, liftoff of the Falcon 9 will occur at 2:22 a.m. Pacific time.
Good morning, everyone. This is Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. Appreciate our editor, Stephen Young, for taking the lead on the front end of our live coverage of the Starlink 9-4 mission. There were some technical challenges on my end, but those have been sorted through, and it's good to be back with you for the duration of our live coverage here on this mission. Currently T minus 14 minutes, 27 seconds left for the planned launch of this Falcon 9 rocket. Second in a back-to-back series for SpaceX, as of course, for those who were with us earlier in the morning, saw the Starlink 10-4 mission lift off from Pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station successfully. There was confirmation that the Starlink satellites deployed on schedule. And so now all eyes are on the West Coast, Pad 4 East, with this latest Starlink launch. 21 Starlink satellites on board, 13 of them featuring the direct-to-cell capability. Once those are on orbit, that'll bring the total of these direct-to-cell satellites up to 129 in total. This is also the 52nd dedicated Starlink launch this year and the 115th in total to feature the V2 mini variety of Starlink satellites. When this mission launches, it will become the 85th SpaceX mission to lift off from Pad 4 East and the 153rd in total. Let's go ahead and talk about where that Falcon 9 is going to be flying once it does leave the launch pad. Taking a look at a satellite view via Google Earth of Slick 4E. Taking a look from the zoomed out view, once the Falcon 9 leaves the pad there, we'll fly in a southeasterly trajectory. First stage booster, following separation, landing on the drone ship. Of course, I still love you. Fairing halves will be deployed a little bit downrange of this map as well and scooped up by one of the recovery vessels. Brought back into port for refurbishing. SpaceX saves about $6 million per recovery effort, so big part of their business model to scoop up these fairing halves, bring them back into port, turn them around for future use. SpaceX is in the process of certifying both its fairing halves as well as its first stage boosters for up to 40 flights. Our T minus 10 minutes, 48 seconds and counting. As you're mentioning, 21 Starlink satellites on board this flight. The image on your left is a picture of the Starlink V2 mini satellite stacked in launch configuration. Each of them clocks in about 1,760 pounds, or about 800 kilograms. With their solar panels unfurled, they have a wingspan of about 100 feet or 30 meters. They use argon Hall thrusters for in-orbit maneuvering. They're built in Redmond, Washington. Will be deployed at about 180 miles or 290 kilometers in altitude at a 53-degree inclination. While SpaceX hasn't released an image of what the V2 mini variety of Starlinks look like in their on-orbit configuration, this image was captured by another company, HEO Robotics, which specializes in imagery that is not Earth-facing. And as we were just showing you the trajectory of the mission, for those who might be able to catch a glimpse of the Falcon 9 rocket as it makes its flight. This, of course, from a slightly different time of day, closer to the pocket of, I believe this was more of a sunset launch. But if you're able to capture an image of the Falcon 9 or the video of the Falcon 9 rocket as it ascends, be sure to post it and tag us on X. We'd love to see your work. That'd be fabulous. Now T minus 9 minutes and counting, a couple minutes ahead of the chill down of the 9 Merlin 1D engines at the base of the Falcon 9 rocket. Let's take a look, though, briefly at the launch timeline. These are the nominal events that we are anticipating following liftoff, which is still currently on track for 2:22 a.m. Pacific, 5:22 a.m. Eastern, 09:22 UTC for those joining us from around the world. Following that liftoff, rocket will pass through max Q, or the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle, about 1 minute and 8 seconds after liftoff. There'll be 3 events in fairly rapid succession after that, starting with first stage main engine cutoff, or MECO, at T plus 2 minutes and 26 seconds. That's followed 4 seconds later by stage separation. And then the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will ignite about 7 seconds after that. Payload fairings at the top of the rocket will be jettisoned just after the 3-minute mark. Then the first stage entry burn begins about T plus 6 minutes and 7 seconds, with the burn lasting about 21 seconds in total. That'll set up the booster for its landing burn to begin at T plus 7 minutes and 46 seconds, with a touchdown on the drone chip anticipated at about T plus 8 minutes and 15 seconds. T plus 8 minutes 40 seconds, the second stage engine will cease firing for SECO 1. Upper stage will enter into a parking orbit, if you will, and coast until T plus 53 minutes 47 seconds, when there will be a brief 1-second burn to help circularize the orbit. The Starlink satellites will then be deployed at T plus 1 hour and 41 seconds. Currently T minus 5 minutes, 57 seconds and counting. At this point, the first stage kerosene tank should be full, coming up on 1 minute away from the strong back retract sequence beginning. I know this is a straining hour for a lot of us for this Falcon 9 flight, so we certainly appreciate those of you who are joining with us live, to the more than 2,400 of you that are up at this odd hour. Appreciate you being here. If you would, if you hadn't already, certainly appreciate it if you can give this live stream a like to allow some more either early birds or folks that are just staying up late the whole time a chance to find this live stream. That'd be much appreciated. Also want to thank Brooke Durham for joining with channel membership at the Pad Leader level, and Apocalypse Cow for gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships. That is also very much appreciated. And to our newest 6 channel members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with
Falcon
us
9 tanks are pressing for strongback retract.
as we now bring you some live views from down at Vandenberg Space Force Base. Slick 4E was a bit foggier earlier in the morning, but it seems to have tapered off a bit. And with the exception of the vapor drifting away from the Falcon 9 rocket itself, it's a fairly clear night right there at the pad.
Strongback retract has started.
Wider view further cements that point. That call out you heard, the Strongback retract has begun now. Clamp arms underneath the payload fairings will open up, and the transport erector here in Vandenberg will recline about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. This particular first stage booster getting ready to make its 17th flight tonight, or early this morning, I should say, depending on your perspective. In total so far, it launched 3 national security missions, those being NROL 87 and 85 for the National Reconnaissance Office, as well as NROL 146. It also launched 2 rideshare missions in transporters 8 and 9, and 9 Starlink flights, among others. Now coming up on 3 minutes before liftoff. Should hear the call out fairly soon that the first stage liquid oxygen tank has completed its fill process.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
And with that, we are just waiting on the stage 2 LOX tank to be completely loaded. At that point, the Falcon 9 will be fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
A good call out from SpaceX. Falcon 9 is now fully fueled. That extra venting are the ground gas closeouts. There you go, the ground gas closeouts that you're seeing and hearing here. As we cruise into the final minute, we should be hearing that the vehicle is in startup momentarily. Do want to quickly thank Tom Johnson for a very generous $50 super chat. Really appreciate that level of support, Tom.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And with that, we are just now waiting on the SpaceX launch director to give their go for launch.
LD is go for launch.
And a good call out there. With that,
T-minus 30 seconds.
going to go ahead and listen into the final countdown from SpaceX, and we'll be back with you with additional commentary on the other side of liftoff.
T-minus 15 seconds. T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff of Falcon 9. Go direct to cell. For 3 seconds.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Nominal power and telemetry. Vehicle is supersonic. Max Q.
MVAC chill has started.
All good call outs from SpaceX as the first minute and a half of this Starlink mission continues to go by. As you just heard most recently, they're thermally conditioning the Merlin vacuum engine for the beginning of its burn. So as a quick reminder of what we're anticipating next, it's that trio of events. First stage main engine cutoff, MECO, 2 plus 2 minutes 26 seconds, followed 4 seconds after that by stage separation. Then second stage engine start at T plus 2 minutes 37 seconds. And that'll be capped by fairing deployment. T plus 3 minutes and 2 seconds. We're about 10 seconds away from MECO.
Nominal trajectory.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
Fairing separation confirmed.
Those Starlink satellites exposed to the vacuum of space now for the first time on this flight. It's 21 Starlinks, including 13 that feature direct-to-cell capability. Those are the ones with the white dots on them, as Stephen was reminding me. Thank you, Stephen. While SpaceX has completed now 2 launches since their July 11th anomaly on the Falcon 9 second stage, perhaps there's some additional relief with this mission going well so far. All appears to be nominal on the second stage flight at this point. So it was the Starlink 9-3 mission, the last launch from Vandenberg for SpaceX, which caused them to have to stand down from launching Falcon flights for a couple of weeks. And fortunately, were able to work through a solution, get signed off on that from the FAA, and now they're back flying, this being launch number 3 since they've been back at it. All 3 of their launch pads put into good use. Now T plus 4 minutes 43 seconds and counting in this mission. The next milestone we're looking for is the first stage entry burn beginning. That's a T plus 6 minutes and 7 seconds. That burn lasting about 21 seconds in total. Now just about 10 seconds away from the start of that first stage entry burn beginning.
Stage 1 entry burn startup. Entry burn shutdown.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
Good call from SpaceX. The flight termination system now no longer needed on that stage of the rocket. We are less than 45 seconds away now from the start of the landing burn beginning. I'll set up the booster for a touchdown on the drone ship. Of course, I still love you. About T plus 8 minutes and 15 seconds after liftoff.
Stage 1 transonic.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
Falcon 9 first stage now traveling below the speed of sound. The other call you heard, the FTS on the second stage, has now also been saved.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 2 terminal guidance.
Landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
For a 17th time, that booster is now safely down the drone ship.
MVAC shutdown.
And with the call of the MVAC shutdown, that being essentially SECO 1, the upper stage, the Falcon 9 rocket, will go into a coast phase, remain in that parking orbit until T plus 53 minutes, 47 seconds. There will be a brief 1 second burn, setting up the Starlink satellites to deploy T plus 1 hour and 41 seconds. Go ahead and close things out with a look at the mission stats as they currently stand, with a good liftoff and landing of the first stage booster. That marks number 17 for this particular booster, 1071 in the SpaceX fleet. This was the 357th Falcon 9 launch to date, the 72nd Falcon 9 launch of 2024. This was the 301st Falcon booster reflight. Number 300 came back during the Starlink 10-4 mission. This is SpaceX's 75th overall launch of 2024, including a Falcon Heavy and 2 Starship launches. This was the 117th SpaceX orbital launch in the last 365 days, the 85th orbital launch from Slick 4E for SpaceX, and the 153rd overall orbital launch from that pad. Moving on to some recovery stats, this was the 97th landing of a booster on the drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, the 261st SpaceX drone ship landing, and the 332nd Falcon booster landing to date as well. Finally, closing out with some industry stats, this was the 25th orbital launch from California this year, the 77th from U.S. soil, the 85th from U.S. rocket company, and the 137th launch from around the globe. The quartet of mishaps, here is where the pie chart lands us as we close out a very busy launch weekend with a trio of missions from Historic Launch Complex 39A, from Pad 40 at the Cape, and finally here at Vandenberg. Successful liftoff and booster landing of Starlink 9-4. Expect confirmation from SpaceX on its social channels of successful delivery of the Starlink satellites on board, all 21, to their intended orbit. Just about an hour and some change after liftoff. Certainly appreciate everyone who is hanging tough with us through all of these launches throughout the weekend. It is always wonderful to have you with us. And for our live coverage here, I want to thank our wonderful moderator, Callistia Lee, for helping us out, as well as Stephanie B. Appreciate the both of you being with us this morning. Big thanks to our channel member community for supporting us through all we do here at Spaceflight Now. So thanks to folks like Zephyr Wolf, Mark Otto, Psychonaut69, Joshua Ganin. Butterfly was with us earlier. We got Julie Polk, Patty Alexikis, and many others. So thanks to all of you and many more, two more to name. Norman Reitzel, good to see you again this evening. Appreciate all you do for Spaceflight Now. And as a reminder, for channel members at the mission specialist level and above, also access our new Discord, still in beta, but love to get your thoughts and impressions on all that. And a final thank you to Ty Guy 760 for a $2 super chat, closing us out here. Appreciate you for that. So thanks to our editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the broadcast and getting this stream off to the races while I was muddling through some challenges on my end. Most of all, thanks to you for all you do and your support of Spaceflight Now, and for watching live wherever you were from around the world, or perhaps you've reached this point and you're watching on a replay. Certainly appreciate you for being with us on a launch replay. However you choose to view our streams at Spaceflight Now, all are welcome. Truly at the buzzer here, Grendel Wizard with a $5 super chat saying thanks for the show. Sat up on my rooftop watching. Like to know when the next one is so I can take a trip to see it up close. Well, depending on how adventurous you are of a trip taker, the next launch from the United States that we're tracking is the USSF 51 mission, the 58th and final time that an Atlas V rocket from United Launch Alliance will send up a national security payload, launching in a 551 configuration. So got 5 cell rocket boosters strapped to that Atlas main stage. It'll be quite the visual spectacle, but that is launching nominally at the start of a 3-hour window that opens up at 6:45 a.m. Eastern. So I don't know if you have any travel plan options available on Monday or later today, but that will be the literal next one coming up on deck. But then looking forward to another Falcon 9 launch, likely from pad 40 or 39A, I believe, on Friday. One of the two. Regardless, we'll have the very latest on our launch schedule over at spaceflightnow.com, so you can hop over there for the very latest on the missions coming up next to plan your travel accordingly. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and folks, we will see you next time. Bye-bye.